C was recorded live at the American Natural Hygiene Society's 45th Annual International Natural Living Conference, held at Georgetown University, Washington, D.C. The speaker for this presentation is Dr. Ronald Cridland. Dr. Cridland is a board-certified family physician and the co-director of the Health Promotion Clinic in Rohnert Park, California. Dr. Cridland is a member of the International Association of Professional Natural Hygienists and is certified for fasting supervision. He is a frequent speaker at numerous health conferences throughout the United States and Canada. Dr. Cridland's topic is energy, the key to health. This recording was made possible by a grant from the James Hervey Johnson Charitable Educational Trust and the support of the members of the American Natural Hygiene Society.
Topic now is energy, the key to health. As I alluded to in my first lecture about the causes of health, I mentioned that sleep was very important. In fact, it was key to the healing process. And because I feel sleep is so important, I stayed up all last night trying to find the cure for insomnia. I hope you all had a good night's sleep. One of the problems is if you don't have a good night's sleep and the lecture gets a little dry, you start to drift off in the front row or something like that. And I'll tell you a little story about a fellow who used to fall asleep in the minister's sermon every Sunday morning. He would sit right in the front row and just doze off. And the minister got kind of annoyed with this because he would always be this way. So one Sunday morning he decided to play a little trick on this fellow. And shortly through the sermon, of course, the fellow had fallen asleep already. And so the minister quietly says to his congregation, "All of you would like to go to heaven, please rise." So everybody stands up, except for this fellow sitting in the front row, sleeping soundly. And he says, "Be seated." Then at the top of his lungs, he yells, "All of you want to go to hell, stand up!" And this fellow jumps to his feet, looks around, and he says, looks at the minister and he says, "I don't know what we're voting on, but it looks like you and me are the only ones for it." So sometimes falling asleep during lectures can be somewhat embarrassing, both for the individual and for the lecturer. However, this is one lecture that I won't complain if you sleep in, because that means you're getting what you need. Now, I outlined the philosophy that we operate with, that health is a result of healthful living. It's based on the observation the body heals itself when we give it a chance. The problem is people hurt themselves faster than they can heal, and that's why disease occurs. So the objective is to identify and remove the factors that interfere with the healing process and allow the body to heal itself. Now, we mentioned that diet is very important. I mean, most people, probably close to 76% of people, kill themselves with their knives and forks every year. 76% of people who die every year, actually. Okay, not everybody dies. But of the 2 million Americans who die every year, 76% die of potentially preventable causes related to diet, smoking, and alcohol. And so eating a healthy diet is absolutely very important. But eating a healthy diet doesn't make you well. It's not enough just to eat a healthy diet. The idea is to eat a diet that doesn't hurt you anymore, while at the same time providing you the nutrients for growth and health, but it doesn't make you well. Environment is very important, and I'll talk more about that tomorrow. If you don't live in a healthy environment, it doesn't matter how good your diet and your activity and your psychology is, your environment can make you sick. So living in a healthy environment is very important, but a healthy environment by itself won't make you well. I mentioned that we need exercise to achieve optimum health and well-being and optimum weight. But again, exercise by itself won't make you well. In fact, it can even make you sick. And psychology is very important too. But it doesn't matter how good you are at relaxing or handling stress or having a good job or good relationships, that alone is not enough to make you well. This became obvious to me as a family physician, and following a healthy lifestyle kind of approach and advocating a vegetarian diet, I would see lots of people who were following healthy lifestyles like yourselves, eating a healthy diet, and they would They were getting exercise and being happy and relaxed and so on. And some would come to me because they weren't feeling well despite doing all of that. And they would come to me because they knew that even though they weren't feeling well, I wouldn't blame it on lack of protein in their diet or something like that, like other physicians would. So they would feel more comfortable in coming to see me. And I was looking at them kind of puzzled because look, they're doing everything they were supposed to be doing in a vegetarian or a hygienic approach. What's wrong? What's missing? And a couple of things started to clue me in. One of them was a study that I read by Harvey Moldovsky, who is a Toronto psychiatrist who published in the latter part of the 1970s articles on fibrositis. We call fibrositis now fibromyalgia. And lots of spelling going on here. Fibrositis and fibromyalgia are conditions of generalized tender spots on the body, trigger points that you press on, they hurt. And they're generalized all over the body as associated with a feeling of fatigue and not well-being. And there's no real pathological abnormalities that we can detect. There's no inflammation in the tissue. We can't do a biopsy and see abnormalities. We can't do a blood test and see abnormalities. But people are definitely affected by this condition and often quite debilitated by it. And he discovered that when he did sleep studies on these people, he'd hook them up to EEG electrodes, and if they could sleep with these electrodes stuck to their head, he would monitor their brainwave activity during the sleep. And he noticed that these people had a deficiency of stage 4 sleep. Now, when you sleep, you go through various stages of sleep in certain cycles. A cycle lasts about 90 minutes, and you start off with stage 1 sleep, which is very light, and then stage 2 is a little deeper, and stage 3, which is associated with more delta wave type brain activity. Delta wave is the slowest, most relaxed brainwave activity. And then the deepest state of sleep is associated with more than 50% of your brainwave activity being delta wave. And that was stage 4 sleep. And then you'd spend anywhere from 20 minutes to 45 minutes in that level of delta wave stage 4 sleep. And then you'd gradually come back up through stage 2, stage 1, or stage 3, stage 2, and stage 1. And then you'd have an episode of what they call REM, or rapid eye movement sleep, where even though your eyes are closed, they're moving underneath the eyelids back and forth, and they can measure that with little EMG electrodes measuring muscle activity. And REM sleep is associated with a lot of dreaming. And it appears that it's probably partially a remnant of our old reptilian brain, the deepest part of the brain, and lower evolved animals have a lot more REM type sleep. REM sleep also seems to be associated with resting of the autonomic and particularly the sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is what secretes adrenaline that enables you to be alert and respond quickly to your environmental changes. So it's an important part of sleep. But it's also associated with lots of dreaming, which can be somewhat irritating to the quality of sleep if it's excessive. Anyways, he noticed a deficiency of stage 4 sleep in these individuals. They hardly spend any time in stage 4 sleep at all. And he could reproduce fibromyalgia and fibrositis in healthy individuals. While they were sleeping, when they got down to stage 4 sleep, he would give them little stimuli, little sounds or little touches that would wake them out of stage 4 and out of stage 3 up to stage 2 and stage 1. Not enough to wake them up, but just enough to prevent them from sleeping in the deeper levels of sleep. And with 3 or 4 days, all these people developed all the symptoms of fibrositis and fibromyalgia. And then when he stopped interfering with their sleep, they would spend a lot more time, extra time, in the deeper levels of sleep for 2 or 3 or 4 days until the symptoms of the fibromyalgia went away. So he concluded that fibromyalgia had a lot to do with deficiency of stage 4 sleep, and that stage 4 sleep was important for some reason. Now, when we looked at the physiology of sleep, we discovered, at least I discovered it, it was known in the literature before I discovered it, that delta wave sleep stimulates the body to release the most important healing hormones like growth hormone and testosterone. Now, we've all heard of growth hormone and testosterone. Those are the two hormones that athletes want to take to build up muscles and tissues and be able to run faster and jump higher and so on. But your body produces it naturally if you sleep enough. It's interesting when I read once in a muscle building magazine, bodybuilding magazine, that these bodybuilders who were successful in winning bodybuilding tournaments had to start 18 months before a performance. Not only did they have to exercise hard and do a lot of weightlifting, and they had to eat a lot of food, a lot of calories and nutrients and so on, but they also had to get lots of sleep, and they had to be relaxed. If they had stress in their life during those 18 months, they had difficulty in putting on all the muscle. Now, it's interesting that when we look at the physiology, we find that adrenaline, which can come from stress or from pushing too hard, causes inhibition of the release of those healing hormones. Adrenaline inhibits the release of growth hormone and testosterone. And so we also discovered that these hormones are released, the healing hormones, growth hormone and testosterone, are released only at the deepest levels of sleep. They are inhibited at stage 2 or stage 1 sleep, and they're inhibited by wakeful state. When you're in a wakeful state, you have a predominance of what they call catabolic hormones, or breaking down type hormones, like adrenaline, like cortisol, like glucagon. And that these hormones are inhibited when you get down to the deepest levels of sleep, where you have the anabolic or building up hormones, growth hormone, testosterone. There's another hormone released at the deeper levels of sleep. It's called erythropoietin. I'm interested in watching you how to spell that, but I don't know how to spell it myself. The erythropoietin is a hormone that's produced by the kidney that stimulates the bone marrow to build up red blood cells and hemoglobin in your blood. And so it's very important. And it was interesting that I noted that I would see, in particular, young people, particularly women, who were living very active lives, involved in a lot of physical activity. They may be going to school, university, holding down part-time jobs at the same time, or bringing up families. And sometimes they would come in, despite having very healthy diets, being anemic. And we'd measure their iron levels in their blood, and we'd find out that their iron was low. And many of these women had already been on iron supplements, and their iron wasn't getting better, and their hemoglobin wasn't getting better. Their anemia wasn't going away. When we did another test on these women, a test called serum ferritin, ferritin is an indicator of iron stores in the bone marrow. And we discovered that their iron stores were in fact high, even though their iron in their bloodstream, the serum iron, was low and they were anemic. It was apparent that these people were not mobilizing those iron stores into the bloodstream to be able to manufacture the hemoglobin. And then we started to put the pieces of the puzzle together. Many of these women were sleep deprived because their lives were too busy and there wasn't enough time to get enough sleep. And that we didn't have to increase the iron content of their diet because that obviously wasn't going to work. All we did was cut down on their activity and increase their sleep. And lo and behold, within a month or two, their hemoglobins were back up to normal. And now we have a physiological explanation for why that occurred. They were not getting enough release of the hormone erythropoietin to stimulate the production of hemoglobin. And as a result, all the iron supplements in the world would not improve that because their problem wasn't nutritional deficiency, it was sleep deficiency. Now, as I mentioned, stress is a problem. We need stress to stimulate us to achieve our optimum potential. But beyond a certain point, we can overwhelm our capacities for tolerating stress, especially if we don't get enough sleep to recover from it. It causes a lot of energy expenditure and wear and tear upon the body. And stress is very important to me, and I try and minimize it in my life and in my practice too, for my secretaries and so on, so that they don't get sick and leave. And back in my office in Canada, we had a very, very busy office. I'd often be 3/4 of an hour to an hour behind. And I overheard one day one of my patients speaking to the secretary, and she says, "Boy, Dr. Cridland has such a hectic schedule. Does he ever experience stress?" My secretary says, "No, not really, but he is a carrier." I've tried to live a more hygienic lifestyle since reestablishing in California. So let's talk a little bit more about this sleep thing. What's happening when we sleep? Okay, there's a whole variety of things, but one of the most important things is sleep is enabling us to recover from our everyday wear and tear and to heal. And so we need enough sleep to recover from all the wear and tear that we experience during the day and to recharge our batteries so that we function normally. And if we don't get enough sleep, then what happens is we start accumulating the daily wear and tear from one day to the next, 1 week to the next, 1 month to the next, 1 year to the next. Gradually accumulating wear and tear until it ends up with symptoms of disease and degenerative change. For example, degenerative arthritis in the spine or in the knees or the hips, which is very common as people get older. But it's not the result of getting older, it's the consequence of not enough maintenance. And it's like driving a car. You know, we can drive a car without an oil and filter change. As long as we put gas in the tank, a new car will run just fine. You know, it'll run efficiently and it'll run effectively and work just fine for the first 40 or 30 or 40,000 miles, and then it'll start falling apart. Why does it fall apart? Due to lack of maintenance. The same thing is happening in human individuals. They seem to function fine without adequate sleep, more or less. Although an interesting study was done on professionals who are healthy, and they did a survey of this group of professionals that they studied and found out that they get on the average 7 or 8 hours sleep in this group. And they did a bunch of performance evaluations on these people, like memory, hand-eye coordination, concentration, and so on. And then they had all these professionals get another 1 more hour of sleep. So now they were getting 8 to 9 hours of sleep. Now previously they were functioning fine, felt well. When they repeated the performance studies on them, they found that they all improved by 10 or 15%. So what this study is telling us is that even though we seem to be functioning fine, you know, getting by on the amount of sleep that we get, oftentimes we are not achieving our potential for function, let alone our potential for long-lasting health and good energy. Now, speaking of energy, if we don't get enough sleep, one of the things we notice is a lower energy level. Now, a lot of people have a bunch of different conceptions of what energy is. And I'm going to mention, basically, there's 2 kinds of energy. There's the one kind of energy that comes from calories, from food. It enables people to run the machinery of the metabolism of the body. And that's very important. However, there is lots of tired and sometimes overweight people out there that have lots of calories on board and yet not enough energy. What kind of energy are they deficient in? It's not caloric energy because they're overweight. They obviously have excess amount of calories. They are deficient in nerve energy. Now, hygienists have been talking about enervation for a long time, which is a depletion of nerve energy. Well, the analogy that we can use that's really quite appropriate is that the nerve energy is equivalent to the electrical energy that would come from a battery. And that you deplete it during the day and you recharge it at night. They've actually done some evaluations and discovered that when you're resting during the day, an average person is burning about 95 calories an hour. And that when you sleep, and that's the lowest you can get your metabolism when you're resting. When you're asleep, you're not burning no calories. You're still, a lot of processes are going on, especially healing when you're asleep. But you decrease your energy expenditure to about 80 calories per hour. So that's a decrease of about 15%. So that's just one way we can explain how the body can do restoration of energy while we sleep, beyond what we can do when we're just resting. So the nervous system is like a battery. There are chemical situations that occur in the nerves that are very equivalent to a battery that discharge with activity during the day. And at night, when you sleep, you recharge it. And it seems that delta wave, deep sleep, is key to that process. But as some literature shows, even REM sleep, that rapid eye movement sleep, is also important for the resting of the autonomic and particularly the sympathetic nervous system. When you are resting, your sympathetic nervous tone goes down to a lower level. When you get down to deep sleep, it gets real low. When you go into REM sleep, even though your eyes are active and you're very much dreaming, your sympathetic nervous system tone goes down to 0. So this enables the sympathetic nervous system to rest. But we need deep sleep as well. Deep delta wave sleep is important for a lot of other healing processes as well. Now, what happens when our energy is low? That means our nervous system is not functioning properly. Now, if we recognize that the nervous system controls every single cell and function in your body, either directly through direct nervous innervation or indirectly through hormones. And so if your nervous system is tired, nothing functions normally. For example, your immune system won't function well, so that you're more prone to infections, colds, flus, or you're more prone to allergies. Allergies are another immune dysfunction where you're developing antibodies to things in your environment or things that are normally healthy in your diet or things that are unhealthy in your diet, and you're reacting to them. Or autoimmune disease, where the body is developing antibodies against its own tissues, like rheumatoid arthritis, where you have antibodies against your joint tissue. Or lupus, where you have antibodies against kidney tissue, lung tissue, all kinds of tissue. Or Graves' disease, where you have antibodies against your thyroid tissue. Why is that? Well, one of the factors is diet. High-fat, high-protein diet aggravates the immune system, but also fatigue also leads to decreased function of the immune system and impaired immune function. Cognitive function, brain function, is impaired when you're tired. We can all recall times when we were tired we had trouble concentrating, trouble thinking clearly, trouble remembering, trouble getting things done, making more mistakes, taking longer to get our work done. Emotional function is impaired as well. When our energy is low, we don't have the energy to cope quite as well. Therefore, molehills turn into mountains more easily. We're much more easily aggravated, upset, distressed, angered, anxious, overwhelmed. You know, that little thing that just at the end of your busy day just sets you right off. You blow things right out of proportion. And after a good night's sleep, the next day you look at it and say, why did I make such a big deal? Because you didn't have the energy to cope. Now, you can end up with all kinds of emotional and psychological symptoms just based on fatigue alone, including severe depression. And it's not because you have a fundamental psychiatric problem that you were born with you have no control over. It's basically due to low batteries. Imagine the pocket calculator. You know, sometimes people notice that their pocket calculator starts making these funny error messages and half numbers and half letters and weird things occurring. And you think, oh, geez, it must be broken. I guess I'll have to check it out. But somebody comes along and replaces or recharges the batteries and it functions perfectly again. The reason why, there was absolutely nothing wrong with your calculator except for the energy being low. And a lot of the time, a lot of our symptoms are just that, low batteries. Now, if we allow low batteries to occur long enough, causing symptoms, let's say we don't get enough sleep to recover from everyday wear and tear and we get an inflammation of our joint. Okay, well that's reversible if you get rid of the cause. You get rid of the inflammatory factors in your diet and you get enough sleep to heal the inflammation, it goes away. No harm done. But if you persist with not getting your needs met and that inflammation persists, it can cause degenerative changes in that cartilage ultimately leading to destruction of that cartilage completely and perhaps even fusing of that joint so it's solid. Now, even at this point, you can still get rid of the pain and the inflammation and the discomfort. But if you allow destruction of the joint to occur, you're not getting the joint back. You're not going to get the function back from that joint. And so fatigue is often the initiating event that begins the symptom and the dysfunction of disease. And if you allow it to continue, that's what lends itself to permanent and destructive changes that to some degree are often irreversible. Now, let's give some examples of particular health conditions that seem to have been kind of difficult to manage prior to this philosophy being established. How many people have heard of chronic fatigue syndrome? How many people think they have chronic fatigue syndrome to one degree or another? You probably all should have your hands up. How many people here can say truthfully that their energy is 100%, 24 hours a day, all the time, 365 days a year? Put up your hand. Okay. We all often, most of us, 95 or more % of us, have some degree of chronic fatigue that lingers. Now, we may be able to function pretty good. Sometimes people get really severe chronic fatigue, and it becomes what they call the chronic fatigue syndrome. These are particularly individuals that have long-standing mild sleeping problems stemming often from childhood. They have difficulties relaxing and slowing down and sleeping deeply, and anything can interfere with the quality of their sleep. And these people often are very motivated, often intelligent people who are very responsible, and they often towards perfection, and they push themselves severely. And they keep going, and they keep going, and they keep going. And they're running so hard that by the time they realize that they're 100 feet from the end of the dock and over top of the water, they've come a long way out into the deep end. And when they sink, they have a long swim back to get well. And so these people are particularly affected by the symptoms of fatigue because they've depleted their energy reserves so much through the pushing and the responsibility. But what are the symptoms of chronic fatigue? The symptoms are the ones I've just described to you. Decreased immune function, decreased cognitive function, decreased emotional function, and just about any other decreased function you can think of. Digestive function, cardiac function, nervous system function, and so on. That these people are experiencing the symptoms of fatigue. And healthy diet often helps people, but it's not enough. These people often have to get 12 to 14, even 16 hours of sleep for months until they feel better, and oftentimes for a couple of years until they feel more or less back to normal. But most people can't accept that. Most people think, oh, no, there must be some other reason. I must be able to get away, do something else, because these people are so motivated to keep pushing that they can't get to the point where they can say, okay, I have to heal and stop moving. And often they get themselves to the point where they can't function at all. They're unemployable and they're on disability if they're lucky, if they have insurance. They're sleep deficient severely. And they also, one of the reasons why they're sleep deficient is because they don't know how to sleep properly. You know what happens when you get tired and yet you have responsibility to get up and go to work or take care of your family or go to school, so you push yourself out of bed. After a while, you don't feel so bad. You feel like going. You don't feel sleepy anymore because you're being stimulated by your mind. Oh, geez, I got all these things I have to do. Or you're excited about the things you have to do. Or you're stimulated by the coffee or the sugar. Or you're stimulated by the physical activity of just getting out of bed and moving. And so you push yourself through your day. And every once in a while, you might get a sense of fatigue, you know, listening to a boring lecture, for example, or driving on a long car ride, or watching a movie or something like that, and you start feeling sleepy again. Now, did the car ride make you sleepy? Did the lecture make you sleepy? Did the movie make you sleepy? No. What happened is the stimulation went down. You weren't as stimulated by that activity, and the fatigue level is starting to be re-experienced. You're actually tired the whole day. But because you're stimulated, you don't experience sleepiness, even though you may be tired. And the more tired you are, the more you push yourself to get through your day. Pushing whether it's through physical, mental, or emotional stimulation, or chemicals like caffeine, or nicotine, or cocaine, all act through the same mechanism. They cause the stimulation of the release of adrenaline. And as you more tired you are, the more you push yourself to get through the day, the more adrenaline you cause to be released. And at the end of the day, you're kind of wired. You're high. You're drugged. Even if you don't take caffeine or cocaine or nicotine, you are still high. And as a result, you have trouble winding down because you're wound up. And you have trouble turning your mind off so you can sleep. And even if you can sleep, you don't sleep deeply. And the adrenaline inhibits the release of those deep healing hormones like growth hormone and testosterone even when you're sleeping. And as a result, you wake up tired the next day because you had a poor quality sleep and not enough of it. And you have to push yourself even harder to get through your day, causing the release of more adrenaline, ultimately leading to a severe sleep disorder where people are told they are overtired. The reason why you can't sleep is because you're overtired. You can't sleep even though that's the only thing that's going to make you better. Okay, they're really, yes, they're overtired, but the reason why they can't sleep is because they're overstimulated. And the way to stop that from getting into a vicious cycle is to stop pushing. If you wake up in the morning and you don't feel like functioning, you shouldn't function. You don't say, well, look, I got to go to work, so I'll take a cup of coffee. You know, I know I shouldn't, but I got to. No, you don't got to. All right? If you want to get well. If you can't function, you don't function. You spend the day sleeping, not catching up on your household chores or doing your shopping or something like that. And then even if you slept a lot of the day, you still go to bed early at night. And you get a good night's sleep. And the next day you'll probably feel like you can go to work, even though you still may be tired. If you continue to get the extra amount of sleep without pushing yourself, that will go away and your quality of sleep will improve. Another problem that can happen is that people are stressed by their lives and have trouble turning their mind off at night when they go to sleep. Now, part of that is from adrenaline or from even animal foods is somewhat stimulating, so not eating animal foods is very important. But even not eating sugar and caffeine to stimulate your mind, just being mentally active can interfere with your ability to fall asleep. Even if it's not earth-shattering events that you're thinking about, even just mild chit-chat, your mind is just sort of chittering on and on and on. That alone can keep you awake at night. And so another very important aspect of good hygiene is not only washing your face and brushing your teeth before you go to sleep, but it's also cleaning your mind. Going to sleep with pleasant, relaxing thoughts so you have a deeper, more healing quality sleep. Now, not only if you do a relaxation technique will you relax and fall asleep quicker and easier, but you go to sleep with pleasant, relaxing thoughts, you have a deeper, more healing quality sleep. And at the same time, you're practicing a relaxation skill that you can use anytime when you need it. And going through the exercise of practicing a relaxation skill has a side effect of increasing your awareness. You have increased awareness of what's going on in your body, physically, mentally, and emotionally. And if you're aware, then you can do something about it. People think if they're intelligent, they're aware. Well, I know of lots of, intelligent PhD type, nuclear physicist type people who walk around with their flies undone half the time. Okay? They're just not aware. Okay? People driving their car like this. Okay? You don't need to be like this to drive your car effectively. In fact, it interferes with your ability to drive the car. Okay? Having your shoulders hunched up and crammed up against the steering wheel. But people are not aware. If they're aware, they probably wouldn't do it. So practicing relaxation increases your awareness. And if you become aware of tension, whether it's physical, mental, or emotional tension in your mind or your body or emotions, then you're more able to do something about it, especially if you have a well-practiced relaxation skill. One of the easiest ways to improve your relaxation skills is through using a relaxation tape. Now, a lot of people think, oh, I relax when I walk the dog or read a book or watch TV. No, that's not relaxation. That's recreation. Certainly it has a beneficial effect. If you enjoy it, it probably relaxes your mind because it distracts you from your concerns. But, reading a book, lying on the couch like this, causing all kinds of muscle tension is not physically relaxing. Okay, exercise where you're stimulating your muscles and pushing yourself is not physically relaxing, even though mentally you may feel more relaxed. That's recreation. It's beneficial, but it's not good enough. Relaxation is where you go through your whole body, physically, mentally, and emotionally, and become aware of any tension or negative thought or abnormality that shouldn't be there, and you let it go. So listening to quiet music, listening to prayer scripture or praying, or listening to nature sounds is not good enough. Okay, that's fine to do that, but it's not enough. One of the easiest ways to improve your relaxation skills is to, for example, listen to a relaxation tape that has words on it that will guide you step by step through a relaxation exercise and guide you to that relaxed state. Or you can take a yoga class or a meditation class or a TM class or something like that and actually learn, improve your relaxation skills through learning a new technique, something more than you already know. And then what's even more than knowing how to do it is doing it. Okay, lots of people have relaxation tapes who have taken meditation before, but they don't do it, so how good is it to them? No good at all. Okay, it's no good unless you do it. And so I recommend that people, especially in the beginning, get themselves a relaxation tape with words on it and listen to it at night when they go to sleep to help them clean their mind. And they lie down and they listen to it and they do the technique. Now you don't think about other things while the tape plays in the background. It's not subliminal. It won't work that way. You got to do the technique, do the exercise. And you may fall asleep before the end of the tape, and that's just fine. Okay? After practicing these things for weeks or months, eventually you got the technique memorized. And you can try other techniques. And eventually you'll develop a repertoire of techniques, and you can select from that what works the best for you under various conditions. And you don't even need a tape anymore. You can play your own thing in your mind, fast or slow, emphasizing parts you like, leaving out parts you don't like. Most people find the relaxation tapes work real well, although you have to keep in mind that when you're listening to a pre-recorded tape, every word on there may not be suitable to you. For example, when somebody's lying down and doing relaxation, if you think about feeling heavy, like you're sinking into the bed that you're lying on, for most people that has a very relaxing effect, just imagining that. The people it doesn't have a relaxing effect for is fat people. They don't like to hear that they're feeling heavy, like they're sinking into the bed. So they have to ignore that word and substitute feeling light. If you use the word you're feeling light, like you're floating off the bed, it has exactly the same effect on relaxing you. Okay, especially for fat people, but it doesn't work good for skinny people because they feel like they're going to blow away. So they substitute heavy for that. Okay? The point I'm making is don't get irate with the tape. It's just guiding you. It's not making you sleep or relaxed. If you get upset about it or anxious about it, that's defeating the whole purpose. Everybody can benefit from using a relaxation tape. If you find that you're not benefiting from it, it's because of your preconceived ideas. You don't like the voice, or you don't like being told what to do, or whatever. Try and get over that, because the tape really works. So we talked a little bit about chronic fatigue. And we talked about chronic fatigue often occurs because people push themselves far beyond their body's capacities, and they don't listen to the signals that the body's trying to tell you. Slow down, stop, ease off, take it easy, get your needs met. Oh no, I can't do that, I'm too responsible, I'm too ambitious, I got to keep going, until they end up way out in the deep water before they realize they run out of energy. And but there's other symptoms, other diseases that are very similar. How many people have heard of hypoglycemia? Okay. Now, if you know much about hypoglycemia, you will know that the symptoms of hypoglycemia are almost exactly the same as symptoms of chronic fatigue, except there seems to be an association with eating sugary foods. But the symptoms are the same, the feelings of weakness, lightheadedness, faint, can't think clearly, can't concentrate, and so on, almost exactly the same. What's happening here is that, yeah, they may be getting hypoglycemia. In other words, their blood sugars may be getting too low. Although a lot of people who have got labeled hypoglycemic, when you measure their blood sugars, they aren't low. And there's a lot of people who have real low blood sugars when you measure it, and they don't have any symptoms of hypoglycemia. Most of those symptoms are not due to the low blood sugar, but they're due to fatigue. And what happens is that when people eat something, and especially if it's got a lot of sugar in it, their blood sugar goes up, and if their pancreas is not functioning quite properly, the pancreas doesn't react quickly enough to slow down the elevation of that sugar in your bloodstream. So what happens is the blood sugar goes up too high. And then the pancreas finally gets into gear and overreacts and releases too much insulin and causes the blood sugar to go down too low. And that's when people supposedly experience all the symptoms of not functioning, tremor, shakiness, can't think, can't concentrate, and so on. But there's a lot of people who have normal blood sugars at that point, and they're having all those symptoms after they eat. Why is that? Okay? They have the symptoms of hypoglycemia, and yet they don't have low blood sugar. What people don't realize is that food is stimulating. Even healthy food is stimulating. Just the process of eating and digestion is stimulating. It's not as stimulating as vigorous exercise, but it's stimulating. And what these people are doing is they're using food as a drug, even healthy food, to keep pushing themselves. And when that stimulation of the last meal starts to wear off, the stimulation goes down, they start to experience their true underlying energy level, which is a lot lower than they thought. And they, oh, I got to eat again. And when they eat again, they get a little more stimulation and they keep on going. But these people don't have a fundamental problem with their blood sugar metabolism. They have a fatigue problem. Now what can happen is if you overdo it on sugars, you can tire your pancreas out by the pancreas having to work so hard after every sugary meal that eventually the pancreas gets tired out and doesn't react properly. But that's only because you're not getting enough sleep for your pancreas to recover from that everyday wear and tear. And what happens is that hypoglycemia is recoverable. A lot of people think, well, I have a high diagnosis of hypoglycemia. I was diagnosed a bunch of years ago, and as long as I follow the diet, my symptoms are under control. But they still feel they have hypoglycemia, and they may. You can control the symptoms by eating complex carbohydrate. If you eat your fruit with some salad greens, the fiber from the salad will slow down the absorption of sugar, so you don't get that high that overtaxes your pancreas, so you control the symptoms. The medical treatment for it is to stay away from carbohydrate and starches and sugars and eat protein. That also symptomatically controls the symptoms, but it doesn't get rid of the cause of the problem. A healthy individual can eat all the sugar they want and not get hypoglycemic. I'm not saying they should, because eventually it will cause them health problems. But if any healthy person I could take right now, if they're healthy, I could give them a pile of sugar and they wouldn't get hypoglycemia. The reason why people are getting hypoglycemia is because of a sluggish pancreas, and the cause of sluggish pancreas is fatigue. And when people get more sleep, hypoglycemia goes away. Another diagnosis that was bandied around, especially in the last decade, is called environmental illness or total allergy syndrome, multiple allergies. What's going on in these individuals is also very interesting. These are individuals who are reacting to things in their environment. And a lot of the time we find that when we take animal foods, including especially dairy and milk, dairy and eggs and meat out of the diet, getting rid of that excessively high-fat protein food, a lot of allergies go away. Even allergies to things like pollen or cats or dogs. That was my experience when I became a hygienist. I had some allergies and they went away when I followed that approach. But some people, although they may get some temporary improvement, a little while later, a few months or a year or so, they start getting the symptoms back. And they start reacting to other foods that are left in their diet, like gluten, which is a protein in wheat, rye, barley, or oats. Or they start reacting to citrus or strawberries or nuts or soya or corn. Now, these are healthy foods. Why are people reacting to them? Well, we get rid of them, and lo and behold, their allergy symptoms go away again. And then a little while later, you know, another 3, 4 months, 6 months, a year down the road, they start reacting to what's left in their diet. By this time, there's not much left in their diet. And it gets to the point where they react to everything and they can tolerate nothing. What's going on? They're doing everything right, or are they? These people, again, are trying to get well by eating a healthy diet alone. Diet doesn't make you well. The idea is to eat a diet that doesn't hurt you anymore while providing you the nutrients for growth and health. The reason why these people aren't healing their immune system, they're just controlling the symptoms by eating a healthy diet because they didn't get enough sleep to heal their immune system. And when they incorporate the sleep back into their lifestyle, the allergies go away. So I'm trying to illustrate to you that the most common, difficult to manage diseases are often related to a sleep deficiency. In fact, if you are sick or you are tired, by definition, you have a sleep deficiency, no matter what's going on. Because if you accept the concept that I've tried to relate to you, that healing occurs when you sleep. If you are sick, you have a deficiency of healing, therefore a deficiency of sleep. Now let's say you get into a motor vehicle accident or you break your leg through some trauma. Okay, well you're injured because of some external cause. But if you only get enough sleep to barely maintain status quo, how are you going to heal? Okay? Well, the body might put a preference into the healing of the bone as opposed to doing other stuff that's not quite as important. So yeah, it will heal gradually. But the point I'm making is, even if you're unwell due to injury, the more extra sleep you get, the quicker you will heal. So it doesn't matter what your health problem is, whether it's due to lifestyle abuse or whether due to external trauma, you need more sleep. And that's the only thing that's going to make you well. Now, we talked about problems with sleeping. We mentioned that if you push yourself too hard, you cause the release of adrenaline, which not only interferes with the ability to sleep properly, but it causes a lot of extra energy expenditure, and also the adrenaline may inhibit the release of the healing hormones. We talked about diet can sometimes be stimulating and interfere with healing. Even when you're eating a healthy diet, it can still be stimulating. It's interesting that, and relaxation is very important too, to be able to turn your mind off at night so you go to sleep with the pleasant, relaxing thoughts, and you have the deepest, best healing quality sleep. Another factor that sometimes interferes with sleep is fear. Not everybody, but some people have a component of fear associated with sleeping. They don't like the concept of, quotes, falling asleep. They don't like to fall. Or they don't like letting go. Okay? They don't want to give up the information gathering, conscious information gathering in their environment, and rely upon their body to keep them functioning and safe. Maybe these people had a burglary one night, and they were always fearful of having another burglary, or maybe they were molested when they were children in the night, and so they developed some fears associated with sleep. If you have any fear that's interfering with your ability to relax and sleep at night, you have to get it solved. Now, there's one other problem that people have with sleeping at night, and that is people phoning them. You know, they're used to you being up till midnight every night, so they don't think of anything of calling you at 11:30. And now you're trying to go to bed at 10, and they're calling you. And so it's really simple to handle that problem. I advise my patients to get a phoneless cord, or an answering machine. I want you to understand that sleep is very important, and that getting your needs met is very important too. And that if you don't get your needs met, what happens? Well, you get sick, or you get tired. If you get tired, you don't cope as well, you get irritable. Okay, so little Johnny for the thousandth time is crayoning on the wall, and instead of, distracting his creative energies into something that's less destructive, you grab him and you do something to him and you throw him in his room because you just don't have the energy to be creative anymore. Now, whose fault was that? Okay, was it Johnny's fault? Johnny's just a baby. He's just 2 years old. Okay, that's what you expect from children. It's your fault because you didn't have the energy to tolerate it, the energy to cope. Well-meaning parents will become very irritable, okay, and will snap at the people they care the most about, the people that they're sacrificing their lives, the people that they're staying up till 1 in the morning to fold the laundry or to bring home the paycheck. And they're doing all of this for what reason? Now, a lot of the time, we commit ourselves to things that are supposedly to enhance our lives. We take on jobs so we can have money to provide security and money to do things that we enjoy. We take on relationships. We take on children, usually by choice, but sometimes not. And we take on responsibilities like mortgages or car loans. And why do we do this? To make our life miserable? No, we do this to supposedly enhance our lives. But pretty soon, along the way, these things start running our lives. These commitments and responsibilities are like the tail wagging the dog instead of the tail serving the dog. And if you wake up one day and you realize that you're not living your life the way you should live it, whose fault is that? I mean, I understand that life is difficult. There's no question about that. Anybody who ever read Scott Peck's, what's the book? Road Less Traveled, yes. The first line in that book is, life is difficult. And the sooner you accept that, the better. I'm not denying that. But who's in more control of your destiny than you? Even though there's a lot of things that you don't have control over directly, you are still the only one who can change it. And so, if you recognize that all these things you took on to enhance your life are now running your life and they're interfering with your ability to enjoy your life, you're the only one who can change that. Getting your needs met. People think, well, if I'm napping in the afternoon, people are going to think I'm lazy. Isn't that a waste of time? No. That's what you need if you're tired. And if you don't get what you need, what's going to happen? You're going to get sick, you're going to get irritable, you're going to start speaking negatively to the people you care about. Or maybe you become sick, and instead of becoming an asset to the people you care about, you become a burden, because now they have to take care of you. Is that what you want? No. So taking care of yourself is not a luxury, it's not an extravagance, it's a responsibility. That if you don't take care of yourself, no one else will or can. And if you don't take care of yourself, in effect, you are being irresponsible. So getting enough sleep, for example, is just another one of your responsibilities, so that you recover from everyday wear and tear, so you have energy to function and cope, and live the life the way you know it should be lived. A lot of us know what we need to do. We know how we should think, we know how we want to think, we know how we should eat, we know how we should act. And yet we're not always doing it, even though we know what we should do. My premise for this lecture is that energy is the key to health. I think I've demonstrated to you that you need energy to function. And that energy, aside from caloric energy that comes from food, your other energy, the electrical energy, comes from sleep, and only from sleep. And there's nothing that can replace sleep to give you what you need in the way of energy and healing. We mentioned this morning, when we just defined health, that health is a degree of functional efficiency of the cell that makes up the tissues and the organs and the organ systems and the organism itself. And that functional efficiency of that self, that primary essence of health, depends upon energy, fundamentally. Not only do we want to eat a healthy diet, we don't want to hurt ourselves unnecessarily with our diet. We want to eat a diet that provides all the nutrients for growth and health. We want to live in a healthy environment. We want to do regular exercise if we have the energy and the health for it to enhance our lives, to achieve optimum health. We want to have a positive, productive activity and relationships, ability to handle stress and relax. But the bottom line is that sleep is when all our healing occurs. So, I hope I've got my message across to you, and that some of you will leave here inspired, and the rest of you will at least wake up refreshed. Thank you very much.
The American Natural Hygiene Society teaches people how to maximize their health potential by living in harmony with nature. The Society, which is dedicated to health education, is the oldest national vegetarian organization in the United States. Its motto, "Healthcare is Self-Care," is a reminder that health is the result of healthful living. For more information about the American Natural Hygiene Society, its award-winning publication Health Science Magazine, and for a complete list of all the Society's books and tapes, call 813-855-6607 or write American Natural Hygiene Society, P.O. Box 30630, Tampa, Florida 33630. This recording was made possible by a grant from the James Hervey Johnson Charitable Educational Trust and the support of the members of the American Natural Hygiene Society.